Hello, everyone. Welcome to Co-op Conversations podcast, a podcast about people living and working in housing cooperatives. And today we are joined by Paul Bradley, who is the CEO of ROC USA, an organization that he founded in 2008 to make resident ownership of mobile home parks viable from coast to coast. And we are also joined by Kristi Peterman, a resident and vice president of Liberty Landing Cooperative, a resident-owned community in Liberty, Missouri. Kristi was the secretary on the board of Liberty Landing when they went through the process of purchasing the community. And in the middle of her term, the vice president resigned, so she was voted into that position. So I read an article about ROC USA and a group of mobile home park residents who bought their land and became a cooperative a few years ago. And I shared this story on social media. And then I did so many times since then because I kept coming across similar articles, and I've been wanting to find out more ever since. And I'm very happy to have Paul and Kristi here to share their stories. So without further ado, welcome Paul and Kristi. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation to be guests on our Co-op Conversations podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Julie. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Paul, let's start with you. Can you please explain what ROC USA is and what it does?
Sure, Julie. So ROC USA is a national nonprofit, and our sole purpose is to help homeowners in mobile home parks or manufactured home communities purchase their communities as co-ops. So in the US and Canada and several countries around the world, there are homeowners who own their homes but rent the lot beneath their homes from a commercial investor. And so for the last 40 years in New Hampshire and for the last 15 plus years nationally, we've been helping homeowners form not-for-profit cooperatives to buy the land and to operate their communities on a cooperative basis while retaining individual ownership of their homes.
So how many resident-owned communities are there in the US?
In our network, there are 312 shared equity resident-owned communities, home to about 22,000 homeowners, and currently in 21 states.
Okay, wow, that's quite a bit. And so can you walk us through a little bit of ROC USA's history, like when it started and how you got involved? I understand you were the founder or one of the founders of ROC USA.
Yeah, so beginning in 1984, as I said, in New Hampshire, there was a nonprofit organization called the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund, one of the first community loan funds in the country. And they provided a loan to a group of 13 homeowners in Meredith, New Hampshire. But back in that period, condominiums were being developed throughout the region. And in particular, on the north side of Lake Winnipesaukee, an area of tourism, condominium development was really, reaching far and wide. And so the homeowners were really concerned that the piece of land they lived on would be bought and redeveloped. But the elderly owners of the community really wanted the homeowners to get control and get security. So they worked with them and they found the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund. The Catholic Order of Nuns, the Sisters of Mercy, provided the loan fund a $38,000 loan, which the loan fund turned around and loaned to the co-op. And it became the first shared equity residential community in the state. I came along on staff in 1988 when we had just a handful of co-op communities at that time, and over the course of 15 or so years, grew that to about 88 co-ops. And at that point, now we're into the mid 2000s, the question being asked was, well, how do we make resident ownership viable in other places, in other states? And so ROC USA was developed by myself and several others to scale resident ownership across the country. And that's what we've been doing since 2008, and working with community groups like Liberty Landing to help them purchase their community.
So Kristi, you're living at Liberty Landing, and so can you explain a little bit how it became a cooperative and how you became involved?
I've lived here since 1998. I've been here for 25 years, and I knew like a few people, just kind of living your life. Then one day we came home and there was a notice on the door, and it said, "Exciting new changes are coming." And as everybody knows, when you get a notice on your door that says exciting new changes are coming, generally that means it's not exciting. It's just a new change. It invited us all up to a meeting, and where we discovered that our owners, Lucy and Jessica, were going to be selling the park, and there were some representatives of ROC USA there. I had actually heard about ROC USA. I had read an article about another community that had become one several years ago, and I kind of kept that information in my back pocket because I thought, that's a real concern when you live in a manufactured home community. You own your home, but you don't own the land. So we had a few more meetings, and the community formed a co-op, and we elected an interim board to look into see if this was actually possible, if we could get this off the ground, and if we could actually do it. And we did our due diligence, and we discovered that, okay, it would take a lot of work, and we could do this, but we presented that to the membership, and it was a unanimous vote to go ahead and let's become a co-op. Let's become a resident-owned community.
Well, that's interesting that it was unanimous.
Mhm.
Maybe Paul, you can elaborate on this. What happens when it's not unanimous? I mean, obviously it's much easier when it is and everyone's on the same page. But undoubtedly there are people who are probably wanting to hold back and for whatever reason. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, our minimum standard, Julie, is 51% approval of the homeowners. So 51% of the homeowners as members of the co-op, and a majority approval to purchase the community. But we have not seen those minimums, if ever, in a long, long time. What's more common recently is, as Kristi noted here, 100% approval. A large percentages voting in favor of, because with the internet, information about how the industry is organized and how some community operators view the residents, view how to manage and operate communities, really not in the best interest of homeowners. People now understand what used to be sort of a dirty little secret in the business. Now it's all out in the open. So homeowners have access to a lot more information, and they're making an informed decision to purchase. And when they are given a viable opportunity to purchase, they're voting in large percentages to buy their communities. Our challenge is producing viable opportunities, because these properties have become so expensive that we're battling every day to find the resources to make these affordable purchases. But when given a viable opportunity, homeowners are voting in large percentages to buy.
Right. And what would you say is the time frame of that increase in property prices? Like, when did the prices start going up?
Really began rising beginning in 2011, 2012, after the financial crisis. I began to see a lot of new private equity players coming into the business. In terms of brand name private equity, Carlyle Group entered the business in 2014. All of the big private equity firms are in the business now. And really, but like with single family homes, it's small and medium-sized private equity that owns the bulk of these properties. And I saw that group, what I saw was a lot of former finance people in corporate America who left corporate America, coming into the and discovering, quote unquote, the mobile home park business as a sleepy little, industry that where they could increase rents dramatically and generate tremendous profits. So throughout the 2010s, mid 2010s, and through COVID, significant investment equity dollars coming into the business, driving up prices, because it's a relatively small industry. There are somewhere between 45 and 50,000 mobile home parks or manufactured home communities in the country. About 3 million homes in those communities. And so it's not a large industry segment, but there's equity flowing in from around the world, from Singapore, sovereign wealth fund, all over the world, pouring into this little industry, and it's impacting homeowners through higher and higher site fees.
So Kristi, you must feel like you've dodged a bullet, that you must feel like you bought at the right time, and having control over your community and keeping your homes affordable.
Yes, that is probably the biggest understatement you could say. I remember getting up when they held elections for the interim board, and I ran for secretary. And my words were, as getting up in front of my community, was like, I believe this is a golden opportunity that we would be very foolish to walk away from, and I still believe that. And to a lot of what Paul said about these private investment corporations that come through, we have been a resident-owned community for 2 years, and we are still getting all kinds of solicitations from people in Las Vegas, people in California, people in way far away from Missouri that are being, oh, we're interested in buying your mobile home community. We throw all that away, but they're still nosing around trying to buy things. And there are other manufactured housing communities in our regional area that have been purchased by those private investment groups. And the first things they do is they raise the rent, and they do things like, if there's a pool or a community playground or something like that, they bulldoze those. They close those down because they cost money to run. So you get less bang for your rent buck, but your rent goes up. And that's something that we don't have to worry about anymore.
Yeah, no, that's great. Do you have many people from other manufactured home communities that come and talk to you, to ask you questions, to ask you about the process?
Yes. We do. A lot of people, not so many around here. The big thing around here is like we get people who want to move out of those communities and move into ours. We do get people who are interested in working with ROC. I mean, they've been guided to us if they want to talk to us about the process and how it goes and what it means. So we've talked to a few brand new communities about things like that. But around here, not so much. We're the only resident-owned community in Missouri, so we're still kind of an outlier.
The one and only.
the first. We like to say that we're the first of hopefully many.
And it is our objective to see more resident ownership in Missouri, in the Kansas City area, for sure, to join with the folks at Liberty. And I was just going to say, in terms of Kristi's point about closing down pools and gathering sites for homeowners, it's actually a part of the training that would-be investors can get from Mobile Home University, which has trained over 100,000 potential investors coming into this industry segment. They actually train people to close down facilities where homeowners, what they would call tenants, could get together and talk with one another and compare notes. And just the opposite, as Kristi's also reflecting in terms of resident ownership, we want co-op, obviously, within communities for people to build those connections. They're in business together, after all. They're neighbors. They're aligned owners of their neighborhood. But we also encourage and support co-op leaders connecting with other co-op leaders within states or across the country, because we think the strength of resident ownership is actually in community leaders like Kristi, those that connect with others and build their community-based power. To be frank about it, so we have just the opposite idea. Like, we want to do whatever we can do to help co-op leaders connect with one another, and it's just just a very different approach, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I was looking, I did a little bit of sleuthing on ROC USA's website and Liberty Landing's website as well, which are both fantastic. And I saw the list of amenities that are available at Liberty Landing, like a swimming pool and like a meeting room with a kitchen and a pool table and park for kids, and it just sounds really nice, like a really great way to build community. And obviously the original owners put these amenities in, and the fact that these investment groups are shutting everything down, I mean, it's obviously they're just in it for the money, and and this is one of the last rocks that they've left unturned, and they're going in like predators, buying everything up. But so glad to see that your work is having such an amazing impact, and it's such a it's one of these forms of affordable housing that has been overlooked as well. The fact that you can purchase your own manufactured home for, I don't know what, $50,000-$60,000, and then if you can be part of a collective and collectively own your land, you're set. And and the fact that more people aren't doing this is kind of I don't know, it's mind-boggling. But you're putting these communities on the map, and that's very commendable. So you use a limited equity model, correct? So can you maybe walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, Kristi, you want to take the first shot at that?
I do not. I'm going to let you take a shot at that.
Fair enough. I'm the technical guy on the call. So so first off, recognize that in a manufactured home community, people own their homes and they rent the site. So the cooperative is formed to buy the parcel of land that is the community. And so the co-op now has a leasehold relationship with the co-op member on the one member, one vote basis. People own their home outright in advance, and they continue to own their home outright after co-op purchase. The co-op takes no possession, no financial interest in the home itself, and Kristi is welcome to sell her home in the marketplace for fair market value. And the new member the buyer simply needs to be approved by the co-op coming in, like any community owner would require. Now, on the co-op side, though, the co-op bought the property with nonprofit resources, largely debt at a high loan to value, that only the type the public sector and the nonprofit sector offer. Banks stop at 75 or 80% loan to value. ROC USA, as a nonprofit, is lending up to 110% loan to value. So we're not a conventional bank. We are a nonprofit community development financial institution with a customized product to fix this problem, right? To help homeowners buy the land. But what the IRS actually requires of us in exchange for using charitable resources to provide this kind of high loan to value financing is that the land is preserved long term. So Kristi and the other members at Liberty Landing are not financially incentivized to get together and sell the community for a windfall profit. If they did choose to sell the property, which is in their rights, they are the owners, but there's no profit motive behind that sale. They would simply get paid back their membership interest, and any other proceeds would go to a nonprofit doing affordable housing in that area. So we've removed the profit motive from reselling the land, which means there's no reason to get together and think about selling the land. The community is preserved long-term. So it is a middle way shared equity strategy. Homes build wealth, sell into the marketplace. The land is preserved long-term, and it is everybody's objective for Liberty Landing forever to be an affordable, resident-owned manufactured home community. And that's how we've gone about that. And it's limited equity also in the sense that the shares are very affordable. Kristi, what are membership shares at Liberty Landing? How much?
$350.
Yeah. So each
okay.
owner occupied home can buy one share for $350. That is fixed. That does not appreciate over time. When Kristi moves out, she'll get her $350 back, and the new member coming in will pay $350. So it's a fixed equity share. And there's no fancy accounting, no debates about the accounting. It is what it is. But when you're only raising $350 per household member, you're not generating a lot of equity in the deal. So that's why you need all the debt financing. But what it results in is it's very easy for homeowners to buy a share and become a voting member. And that's ultimately what we're interested in, right? Is aligned ownership in the community. Everyone owns their home. Everyone owns one share in the co-op and has one vote in the co-op. We've now created what used to be bifurcated ownership, owned homes, rented land. Now we have aligned ownership, owned homes, one member, one share, vote co-op. And that supports the economic security of the neighborhood. That also supports the long-term preservation of the neighborhood and the social engagement, because everybody's coming from the same basic place from an economic standpoint. So that's how it all holds together. But it's a middle way affordable housing community preservation strategy, both wealth building and community preservation.
And do the mobile homes do they acquire much? Like, do they increase much in market value? They do, yeah. Like compared to like a standalone home, or like how would you compare them?
Yeah, so there's actually a Consumer Union did a study on this in the early 2000s. And you could Google manufactured housing appreciation study, Consumer Union. What they basically documented was that at the time, a third of all manufactured housing was appreciating. And then if you controlled for a couple of things, manufactured housing can appreciate at the same rate as detached single family. And two of the things that they controlled for was security of land tenure. Is there security of land tenure through ownership in terms of a co-op, through a long-term lease? If it was an investor owner that offered a long-term lease, that homeowners would know that the land could not be sold out from under them, the community closed down, or the rents be raised dramatically. That is contributory in terms of value to the house. And then access to decent financing for the homes. And if you have those interventions, security of land tenure and access to decent financing, then manufactured housing can and does appreciate. And we've documented this in a 2006 study by the University of New Hampshire, where homes in resident-owned communities were selling for prices 16% more than comparable homes in comparable investor-owned communities in the same towns. We found 8 towns with communities that were very similar, one resident-owned, one investor-owned, and homes and co-ops were selling faster and for 16% more than those homes in investor-owned communities. And that was almost 20 years ago now. And one thing that is very true, the longer the co-op owns the property, the more affordable the site fees, the more appreciation of the homes.
Oh, okay, interesting. And do some of these investor groups, do they buy some of the homes as well, or just the land?
They do. There was a very significant event in the manufactured housing sector back in 2000, and it was the literal collapse of the housing finance system. At the time, it's the personal property finance market and the commercial mortgage, the commercial asset-backed securities market. This industry went from producing 380,000 homes or floors in 1998 to less than 50,000 by 2003. And the reason for that was the literal collapse of the housing finance system. In the business, it's called the chattel collapse. It was so bad that the personal property finance business that Conseco Insurance Company bought, Greentree was the name of the company, sent Conseco into bankruptcy in 2002. At the time, it was the third largest bankruptcy in U.S. history, brought down by the little mobile home finance division called Greentree. We had over 1 million repossessed units in the Southeast in that period. So that was a very significant event that led the traditional business model of owning the land and selling the homes now became, in some instances, own the land and also own the home and rent out the home. And so you do see some of that, especially in the Southeast, where there was all those repossessed homes and where the personal property lenders did not come back to the market in a robust way because the losses were so significant. And here we are 23 years later, and there's a lot of remnants of that 2000 chattel collapse still evident in the marketplace. And one of the ways you see it is in these rental homes. But what we look for on the co-op side is this is a model that works for homeowners. So if a co-op purchases a community with a couple of rental homes, they quickly sell those homes to the occupants and get the community to 100% homeowners. Because this really is a model that, for homeowners, it's not a model. Kristi does not want to be renting, and the board of directors, they does not want to be renting homes. They want to operate the co-op and the community, not a home rental business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are a resident-owned community, so you have to be an owner, and that that goes beyond just owning your home. You own the whole community. And to what you said before about these investment companies that come in, and you use the word predator, and that is a lot of what they do. We call them manufactured homes. The older term was called mobile home because they're movable, so to speak. They're really not. They're not designed to be moved very often. And to pull one out now, I think roughly costs around $10,000. There's some damage that can be done to the home when it's moved. That you have to have people who are licensed. It's not like you can just hook up your pickup to it and pull it off out into the woods somewhere. It's a whole process. So when a lot of these investment companies go in and they buy communities and they raise the rents and they get rid of all of this stuff, a lot of people can't afford to live there anymore. They also can't afford to pull out their home. So they either have to sell it or they abandon it. And when these companies get a hold of it, they start renting it out. So they're renting it out at a higher rent rate because now they own it. It's definitely not affordable housing. I know that there is a community that's in our area where there's somebody that I know personally that is paying right around $1,500 a month for a home that is smaller than mine. Our lot rent is $485. That is what our rents are. So you see like the drastic difference in what affordable is and what affordable isn't, and what some of these outside investors do, and what a ROC gives you some insurance against.
Yeah. So in your case, in Liberty Landing's case, the owner wanted to sell to the residents, right?
Yes.
And so that seems like the ideal scenario. Does that happen very often?
I would so it's the Hawley family that owned and developed Liberty Landing over 40 years or so. Lucy Hawley, who was the principal owner and manager of the community, learned about resident ownership back in 2008, and had it in the back of her mind all along that she wanted to sell to the homeowners. And so when they got ready to close down their real estate business and sell the community, they called us. And I would say, Julie, that is rare that a community owner will call us. It has happened, but she's really extraordinary. She did not want to sell out to some of these aggressive private equity players. And as she described it to me, she got to know the homeowners in the community and really cares about people there. And she could not live with herself if she put them in a really bad situation. And so she was very committed to selling to the homeowners from very early on. Most times we're approaching community owners and educating them about resident ownership and encouraging them to think of the homeowners. And, it's a small percentage of community operators that will engage with us and through the process. That's just, for lack of familiarity as a general rule. It's easier to think that selling to somebody like yourself is going to be easier. But we have testimonial after testimonial of sellers saying selling to the co-op was actually easier than selling to third-party investors. And so
interesting.
It's on us. It's on leaders like Kristi, to help find as many community operators and educate them early before they even are committed to selling their community, but to begin to educate them so that they can get comfortable with the idea. And the more we can find, the better.
So you obviously can't be all over the country doing this work. So you work with regional affiliates called, certified technical assistance providers, who in turn work closely with the board of directors. So do they go through some kind of training? My understanding is that they seem to be kind of like, I call myself a Julie of all trades. So they're Jack of all trades. They seem to be working in affordable housing in general. And is this something that they kind of do on the side, or can you maybe explain a little bit how those regional affiliates how they work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we operate with two ways of providing technical assistance. We have a network of 10 nonprofit affiliates that are licensed to work in 19 states. And these are traditional affordable housing developer organizations or cooperative technical assistance centers. And then we have about an equal amount of each in the network. And they operate as independent organizations, but under an agreement with us to provide resident community technical assistance services. And then we also developed a national direct team because and actually Liberty Landing was first in this respect as well, because Liberty Landing came to us during the pandemic, and we needed, we were not going to let Liberty Landing fall through the cracks for lack of having a technical assistance affiliate in Missouri. So one of our lead staffers, Angela Romeo, supported the homeowners through the process in Liberty, and we developed around Angela, beneath Angela, a national direct team. So now we have an agile team that can go to the other states that we don't have an affiliate in, and eventually we'll build affiliate relationships in those states. But we needed to be more agile to serve communities like Liberty Landing, in also Mount Bethel, Pennsylvania, similar story. So that team is putting some mileage on and serving communities at a distance, but we had to get to more places more quickly. So we serve now the entire country, coast to coast, with technical assistance services. These are very specialized services, Julie. So the staff that are supporting resident communities are in deep, because it's and Kristi can attest, I mean, it's complicated. There's a lot going on. These are cooperative businesses operating a piece of commercial real estate, and playing, in traditional parlance, landlord-tenant, relations, if you will. So there's a lot going on, and we try to build up the technical expertise and the organizational development expertise to support strong resident-owned communities and support boards of directors like Kristi serves on.
And you support them throughout the length of the mortgage?
We do provide for the length of the loan, which typically is a 10-year loan, sometimes 15, and if it's refinanced for another 10. And then we always, regardless of whether co-op has financing with us, we have services that are available to the co-ops. So we have an online training, no surprise, learning management system called Rocket. That's free and accessible to any co-op member across the country. We do regional trainings, we do national convenings. So we have both borrowers and non-borrowers that participate in those activities. But for specialized on-site training and coaching, there's a contract, services contract to support the technical assistance that's going on in those cases.
Okay. Have you followed any of this training, Kristi? I'm assuming that you have. You're nodding.
Oh, yes, I have.
Yeah.
There's a lot of courses out there. I think I've done like around 16 or 17. But it's training in about everything. There's conflict resolution, there's communication, there's how to be a board member, there's infill and marketing, there's wellness training and things like that. And you don't have to be a board member. I mean, anybody who is in a ROC can do this. Most of the training is at your own pace, although there are some live sessions, and I really enjoy the live sessions. We got on Zoom and you meet people from other ROCs around, but it's very helpful.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I noticed that there was a lot of online training. Is that something that came about from COVID lockdowns, or were you one of the trailblazers and offering online training before everyone was introduced to Zoom and Teams and all these online platforms?
Well, Julie, we tried to be ahead of the curve for sure. We took 2 previous attempts to develop an online learning management system and training program, and we were unsuccessful. These were, and it wasn't till our current leadership, Colleen Lindecker, and that team, which came out of online education at the university level, and they really knew and know how to do it, and they have been incredibly successful. But it was my lack of familiarity with online education and training that led to, our failed efforts. But now so technically we tried to be innovators before COVID. We ended up being implementers during COVID, but nonetheless, we're there now, and I couldn't be more happy. And it's all part of, where ROC USA itself is a social venture, and we're called on for a wide array of things. Like every organization, every nonprofit, we have our challenges in terms of resources to help build the team, build the capacity, and put the right tools and resources together. But we're there now, and I couldn't be happier. Rocket is our online training system, both for TA providers, our staff, and for co-op members. And the next great frontier there is, how do we support peer networking in conjunction with online education? Because as I said, we strongly support co-op leaders connecting with peers, sharing information, working together. And we actually go so far as to support movement building among co-ops. We firmly believe that co-op leaders are the most articulate and the best position to drive public policy changes, to develop resource opportunities in states and locally and nationally to support strong resident-owned communities. So we have a service unit here at ROC USA that was begun in 2021 called ROC Movement, and it is specifically to support ROC leaders stepping up and stepping out and self-advocating. Because it's just worth noting, this is a housing stock that has been the stepchild of affordable housing, largely ignored and dismissed. And so we're having to challenge stigma across the board. And frankly, the best way to do that is to introduce people like Kristi, who can self-represent herself as a dedicated, knowledgeable, hardworking, co-op leader who loves her home and loves her community, and is just doing she's one of many co-op leaders just doing amazing work. So we just want to showcase that, give her a voice.
Well, you do a great job, looking at your website and all of the video testimonials that I watched. I don't know, like maybe between 5 and 10. I couldn't stop watching them because they were, they're nice and short, and it's residents telling their stories, and it's very very motivating, very inspiring, and there's nothing better than talking to the residents to showcase the benefits of being resident, being owners of your land. And so your communications program is very effective, and and hearing the voices of the residents is the best way to get that message across. So Kristi, I wanted to ask you, so how has it changed your life becoming a leader of your community and taking part in purchasing your land? How has it changed you?
Wow. Where to begin? I would like to say that Lucy, by selling to us and wanting to sell to us, was just the biggest gift that she could have given to us, and that the fact that ROC USA exists is a second big gift. I mentioned before that I moved in here in 1998. I took a job in Kansas City, and I had been a renter before, and my husband and I had to move up into Kansas City, and we were looking around for rental places, and nobody wanted to rent to us that we wanted to rent from, because we had 2 dogs, 3 cats, and 2 aquariums, and that's a bit of pets there. So I was running out of time. My job had put me up in a hotel, and I was running out of time, and I was driving back, and I passed a place that was selling mobile homes, and I thought, that's an interesting idea. And then looking at, manufactured home communities. And I went driving around, and my husband and I looked at all of the communities around here. Liberty Landing was the one that really stuck out. I have a military background, and it reminded me a lot of base housing. There's a lot of green space. It was very neat. There's driveways. It wasn't just trailers on asphalt. It was a community. And I'd lived here for 23 years when we went through the process of buying the park, and I knew the neighbors on either side of me. I was acquainted with some neighbors across the street, enough to wave and say hi. Once we bought the community and formed our cooperative and elected our board, we know everybody now. Everybody knows everybody. I noticed immediately as you're driving through the community on the way and you pass people wave. Nobody did that before. We recognize each other. You see people out walking. And recently, in addition to our pool and our clubhouse with the kitchen, that's actually 2 levels, our storm shelter is downstairs, but it's also like a big party room and a couple of playgrounds. We recently did a ribbon cutting for a family recreation area. We have 2 pavilions and a fire pit that's right off to the side, and cleared out some space for a larger green space that people can reserve. They reserve our clubhouse for things like baby showers and birthday parties and Halloween parties. And now they can reserve a pavilion. We've got picnic tables and grills under each pavilion. So you could, when it's not, really cold outside, you can, have a picnic with your family, or have a baby shower or birthday party out there. And we're starting to do to build community engagement, because we've discovered everybody likes a bonfire. And on Fridays, we're doing Friday fires, where we're going to go out and have a bonfire every Friday and roast some marshmallows and make some s'mores and just sit around and talk, get to know each other. So we're not just a neighborhood anymore. We are a community, and there is a big difference in the two. A neighborhood is just people who live near each other. A community is actually a group of people who live near each other and know each other and pull together and do things together. And that's what we've become.
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing that. And it makes you much more resilient as well. Like, especially, I've heard so many stories of cooperatives all around the world that survived the lockdowns because they were a community and people were, helping each other out and keeping morale up. So your community is very well positioned to withstand all kinds of challenges, including I also read on the website that you have a storm shelter, so you're you're well prepared for the apocalypse.
well, we live in Tornado Alley, so a storm shelter is kind of a must.
So Paul, I also saw that you announced recently that you will be leaving your position of president of ROC USA to become CEO of a new venture called Integrity Community Solutions, which will be a subsidiary of ROC USA. Well, congratulations on this new development, and so this is to basically deal with these huge investment corporations that are swooping in and buying all the land. So can you tell us a bit more about what your plans are with Integrity Community Solutions?
Yeah, happy to. So what Liberty Landing represents is a longtime owner, single manufactured home community that was a co-op, a direct co-op purchase, right? Seller selling the single community to a single co-op. Makes perfect sense. It's what we've been doing for 40 years and wonderful. The challenge is that now 3/4 of mobile home park sales a year are now portfolios of multiple communities. So all of the private equity players that have been coming into the business have been consolidating the industry, building portfolios of multiple properties, and then selling the entire portfolio in the business, what's called up the food chain, to more institutional-like investors that will pay higher prices and lower cap rates. So it's just a nature of industry consolidation that's not unlike consolidations that's happening in a lot of industries in Canada, the US, the world over. So we've known we've needed to confront the consolidation of the industry if we're going to help really the most local ownership of all, resident ownership of single properties. We're going to have to confront this consolidation problem. The first thing we had to do was really build our capacity to support resident ownership across the country from coast to coast, which we now have between the network and our direct team. And then we knew we would need to establish an organization that could acquire portfolios, manage them on an interim basis, make them co-op ready, and then offer individual communities to individual resident groups. And so that's the purpose for Integrity Community Solutions, to buy portfolios, manage them on an interim basis, and then sell them one by one to the homeowners, which is a democratic process. On the co-op side, they need to decide whether they want to purchase the property or not, but we're going to make that property available to them. And my objective is to make it affordable as we possibly can, and also develop the sales timeline based on a healthy cooperative development process. Because one of the things that happens in the single transaction direct to co-op business is, in most cases, we're doing things on commercial timelines. So we're helping new co-ops get formed and purchase their communities within a 4-month period.
Wow,
It's
that's
incredibly fast, but the only way most community operators will deal with the co-op purchaser is if it's based on time frames that they see in the commercial market. And it's even the commercial market has sped up, had sped up. It's now slowed down with the commercial credit constriction that we're seeing across the country now. But you know, we had cash buyers for properties buying communities, you know, on 30 and 60 days during the height of this recent run up. So that we never competed with, but you know, certainly helping co-ops buy their properties within 120 days, which is just very short time frame for good cooperative development. So we're going to be able to smooth the process out a little bit as well. What I say, our objective is to make the communities co-op ready and then build a sales process and a purchase process that really makes sense on the cooperative development side. So that's what we're endeavoring to do. ROC USA has incorporated the subsidiary. We've capitalized it initially, and we're beginning to look for, you know, small portfolios now. And I just had to confront, Julie, you know, the significant bandwidth involved in both leading ROC USA and all of the complexity we just talked about, and then launching a new enterprise. And, you know, the fact is I'm towards the end of my career as it is. So succession was on my mind for ROC USA. And so now's a good time to both find a successor for ROC USA and for me to move over and take on this special project, which I'll just note, you know, a big consideration for me is how do we bake the values that are so important to ROC USA into this new subsidiary, and the way in which we have at ROC USA. And I'll just note, one of the ways we've baked our values into ROC USA that we undertook in 2013 and have invested in continually since is the development of an association of the communities we serve, and those communities elect directors to the ROC USA board. So 3 of my bosses today at ROC USA are elected by the co-ops we serve, and they serve on the national board. That's really important to ensure this organization remains singularly focused on supporting successful residential communities and standing shoulder to shoulder with the communities we serve. No matter who sits in this seat going forward, that is a formal legal part of ROC USA LLC, so now next step is, you know, how do we bake those values into the new subsidiary and ensure that subsidiary operates in a brand consistent manner and focused on the same mission, just a different means of getting there. So it's an exciting time. I'm so excited. And, you know, hey, look, after 15 years, fresh leadership at ROC USA will help ROC USA get to the next level as well and serve communities better, which I'm all for as well. So lots of good things.
Yeah, well, best of luck. It's you know, it sounds like it's badly needed. So you're taking the right step. So speaking of succession, while I was perusing through the ROC USA website, I did notice that there seems to be a lot of seniors that are living in these resident-owned communities. So how do they deal with the succession? And you know, like here in Canada, we talk a lot about you know, aging in place, accommodating seniors to stay in their homes as long as possible with services. So how are you tackling that whole situation?
Well, Kristi, I guess Liberty Landing's, you've been a co-op for 2 years. Obviously, Holly has been the founding president and continues to be. There are discussions about succession of leadership at Liberty Landing?
There are. The biggest thing that we work on, and I think all co-ops work on, is engagement. You're just getting people to participate. A lot of people, well, there's an owner, like we're owners now. We all are owners. We each have one share, but we're owners. And sometimes it's difficult for people to make the transition from an owner mindset from a renter's mindset. And so getting engagement and getting people to participate in meetings and come to things, the big thing that we're working on is getting people to just come out. And I think once you start getting people who volunteer for small things to serve on a committee, then it's easier for them to think about becoming a board member. We have actually had, since we started this process with the interim board, we've had 12 board members. Holly and I are the only two that were actually on the interim board. Our vice president and our vice president and our treasurer and our ops directors have all had turnover. So there are, anytime that we have a position that comes open, there's always somebody there who's willing to step up, who's willing to come out and take a look at stuff. As for aging in place, that's a bigger challenge. We do have quite a few older people who live in our community. We are an all ages community, so we have, families with little kids all the way up to elderly people. Most manufactured homes are one leveled, so you don't have the stairs or anything to worry about on things like that. People can do a lot of the same things that you would do in a regular house with grab bars and handles, adding ramps and such. But that is a challenge. I think that's a challenge for anything in aging in place and affordable housing combined.
Mm-hmm. And so do you have much turnover over at Liberty Landing, Kristi?
Not really. We've had 2 people move out, and two people have moved out, and then we've had 2 new people move in. We have 4 homes for sale right now. And the whole process to get something is, they have to go through a background check, they have to go through a credit check. If they pass those, then I'm actually the one who calls them and talk about, I let them know, what exactly is it? What does it mean to live in the Liberty Landing Cooperative? What are your responsibilities? What happens? What is required of you to live here? And based on conversations that I have with people, I send them our bylaws, I send them our community rules, I answer any questions that they have. And then based on that, I take it to the board and make a recommendation to either yes, approve them as a potential member, or no, don't approve them as a potential member. We've only had to turn down 1 person, and that was their background check that came along. I mean, we, like all communities, we want to live in a safe community. So, when background checks turn up something sketchy, we had to make a decision there. But it's up to the individual homeowner to market their home. We help them. We have our website, we have a marketing Facebook page, we have signs, we have, all kinds of things, but it's up to them to cross market. There are a lot of people who come through and look, who think about, living here. We talk to a lot of different people, but I want to say we have 184 homes, and we've had 2 sales, and we have 4 up for sale now. So out of 184 in 2 years, that's not a lot of turnover.
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously it's a great place to live. So why leave?
I think so.
Yeah. And Kristi, how much are homes being listed for? What are the sales prices generally speaking?
I want to say the most expensive one is 80,000. There's roughly 60,000, 50, 60. The most expensive is 80.
And they're how big usually? Like about 3? Is it 2 3-bedrooms?
Most of them are 3 bedrooms. Yes, most of them you buy are 3-bedroom, 2-bath. There are a couple of smaller ones. We've had a small one that sold that was, I want to say, 2-bedroom and 2-bath. We have one, I think, that's a 4-bedroom, but it's, like you can have a manufactured home built to pretty much your specification. It just has to fit on a lot. So yeah, most of them are 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
And what happens if, I don't know if this has happened in Liberty Landing, but let's say someone, got a posting somewhere for a year with their work, and they want to rent their home. Is that possible? Do you have that in your rules?
We do. It would be only a temporary thing, and it's usually, say somebody who has, they have to move off for an illness or something like that, and they have a family member that wants to come in who is not the homeowner, that will pay the lot rent and do so. But it has to go before the board, and it would be. It wouldn't be you just decide to go do something. It would be something like you have a military posting, or you have it would be a hardship case, is what something like that would be. But yes, we do have a plan for that.
Another question I had was, do any of the resident-owned communities hire property management, or do they do all of the management themselves, or is it a mixture?
We have a property manager.
Yeah.
I
You have a lot of homes.
I know,
yeah.
We have a lot of homes, and the thing is none of us are property managers. Property management. My mother was a property manager for many, many years for a real estate company, and that's a lot. And most our board members all have full-time jobs. We all work outside the home. We don't have time to deal with the minutia of being a property manager. So we actually have a really good property management company that manages us. And they, if there's something with the rent, or there's communication and things like that, they deal with most of that. And they have a website that has a portal that our residents can get into, that we send out communications through a portal that goes into email, things like that. So it's, and to be honest, right now the residents already know where I live. So they, it's not uncommon for them to find me at the mail house, or to show up. But I definitely don't want 184 different residents showing up, because they would think, oh, I only need it for just a minute. They have to have a place that it can all funnel through. We prefer that they don't come to us directly.
Right. Yeah. Because that leads to burnout too, and you don't want, people don't want to get involved in the governance if they're going to have to be dealing with
exactly
the minutiae, as you say. Yeah.
Yep.
Did you want to add anything to that, Paul?
No, historical note, in the early days of in New Hampshire, we would train for self-management. And so back in the day, I worked with many treasurers with 13-column worksheets, and we that was just how it was done. And at ROC USA, when we launched in 2008, we just made it a standard. Every resident-owned community will have at least a paid financial manager if they're going to borrow from us, and for larger communities, certainly 184, like Liberty Landing, full service property management. And Kristi explained it perfectly. People are busy, and you also want, just stepping back, you want a board of directors that isn't so consumed with the day-to-day, because what you want is positive community leadership, with the foresight to build outdoor recreation centers and have s'mores around a campfire on Friday night. I mean, you want to encourage community building and support, as opposed to chasing down park rules violations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
It's called governing, looking at the big picture. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, good.
Has there ever been a circumstance, Paul, where it was decided that, this community wouldn't be a good fit to become, a resident-owned community, and what were the reasons, or what are the reasons?
Well, it happens a couple of ways. Certainly initially, whether it's a community that on the surface of it, we think there's the potential for resident ownership. What makes for successful resident ownership are communities where the vast majority are homeowners, where homeowners have demonstrated some investment in their homes and the community, because then they are more likely to want to get security of the land, get control of the land. So there's that sort of initial screen around homeowners. You see it prevalent in some parts of the country where RVs are actually parked in manufactured home communities. And as an organization, we limit RVs, recreational vehicles, in manufactured home communities. And I say it fundamentally, the RVs are not built as permanent homes. Manufactured homes are built as permanent homes. And so we want to see communities of manufactured homes. But then most important, frankly, is the process by which the community goes through to decide whether they want to be a resident-owned community or not. And for that, we provide a forgivable loan so that the co-op members can come together, hire their own lawyer, hire an engineer, get an appraisal, all the additional due diligence, including financing commitments, so that they have all of the information they need to assess the community themselves, and then come together as a membership at the conclusion of that process, based on all the available information, make an informed democratic a decision to purchase or not. And if they choose not to, we write off that forgivable loan. No harm, no foul. If they choose to purchase, that due diligence loan goes into their financing package and it gets paid back. But for us, part of the way we meet that timetable that I described earlier is by providing them the resources so that they can get the third-party expert help they need, in addition to our technical assistance, facilitating that process so that people can make an informed democratic decision to purchase. And that decision is the most important decision, because homeowners and co-ops have done remarkable things, even in challenging circumstances, but it starts with commitment. And so, we're paying careful attention to those vote percentages and the process that co-op goes through to make that decision.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think this concludes our podcast episode for today. I think we have a very good overview of resident-owned communities that you've provided us today, and having your perspective, Kristi, of a resident living at Liberty Landing is really valuable, and so is yours, Paul, being part of ROC USA and one of the founders, and now heading off into another aspect of acquiring land and competing with the big guns. Very exciting to hear about all of this work, and very very innovative, and just the fact that these are affordable homes that people own, and they're already together on one plot of land. It's just a really beautiful way to create community and to create this opportunity to maintain affordability, which is so badly needed these days. So thank you for all the work that you do, and Kristi for all the work you do in your community, and spreading the word of the benefits of resident-owned communities. Thank you so much.
This was really fun to do together, and Kristi did a wonderful job. Thank you for joining me here, and Julie, thanks for reaching out to us. We really were happy to do this and spread the word. So thanks for helping us out.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this latest episode of Co-op Conversations. We hope that it provided a better understanding of what life is like in a housing co-op. If you're interested in finding out more, you can visit us at housinginternational.coop. We feature many stories and resources on our website with useful tools, studies, and articles on topics ranging from governance to finance to sustainability and so on. You can also find us on social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, where we like to share stories and good practices of co-op housing around the world. If you want to find a housing co-op in your region, I suggest that you do an online search for co-op housing along with the name of your city, and hopefully something will come up. I would like to thank all of our guests for sharing their stories with us. Thanks for listening.